Hey everyone, Mango7Roll here. How we doing today? Welcome to another episode of Epic 7, and we're gonna do a throwback video today. Today we're actually gonna go back through my #1 most viewed video of all time and see how wrong I was, or not how wrong I was, but how wrong I am now. You know, we're gonna look at the top 10 things people screw up in Epic 7 and then see if it lines up with what goes on today. So this video was made pretty much right as E7 came out. Not right as, but like a little bit into the game before it really matured, I guess. And at that time, I was getting approximately 1 billion PMs a day on what they should do and why they should do it. I still get a ton of PMs now, by the way. You can join my Discord and send me a PM there. I'll always answer. And if I don't, just send me another because I accidentally missed it. But I had a lot of inside information from people who needed help back then. So kind of fun to see. 180,000 views, by far my best video. I don't think it was my best put together video, but my best video in terms of views. And it really goes to show how much clickbait helps, because look at these top videos here. Top 10 things people screw up. My top gacha games. 42 ML summons. Complete starter guide. Cool. This one I'm really impressed with. Perfect Star Me and Star You, LOL, Pokemon Quest. How to make fast 6 stars. Top 10 free-to-play units. Top 5 things you should know. You can see also LOL Hazel is up here too. So really cool to see my older videos doing so well. And let's jump into this. And I've already watched it. I tried to do this recording while I watched it. It just didn't work. So we're just going to go over the things in order. I will leave the link in the description below if you want to check out the video for yourself. So let's take a look at the first thing on the list here, which is the Breath of Orbis, the Sanctuary of Orbis. And this is something a lot of people messed up back then because we were very limited on Breath of Orbises. It was really hard to get all the things, and as such, people just didn't know what to put them in. It was to the point where I think I have like 5 of these videos where how to allocate your Breath of Orbis at what type of gear level and stage of the game you're in. The biggest thing back then that people didn't do is didn't unlock their slots for these, so they only had like one thing going here, which is pretty massive in the long run. And they also were not running dispatches, specifically ancient coin and conquest point dispatches. These are massive, and it's something I think people might not be doing now too, like might be getting lazy about it, or maybe there's still some random people sending it out for stigma, which actually is not terrible anymore, and gold. But either way, I think this one is a pass. I think this is still something that matters back then, and I still think my advice that I gave back then holds true. That's really cool. Next up is equipment, and we talk a little bit in equipment. #2 out of my top 10 list in terms of flat stats and broken sets. So back then, equipment was really what's the word, not as obvious as it is today. It was obvious for the people who had played games like this before. There were so many new gacha game players back then, they didn't understand how to look at stats. So I would often log into somebody's account and they'd have like flat HP on their Angelica's boots, or they'd have like a flat defense on something. They just wouldn't care about the main stat, right? And they would care more about the substat. So that's something I think has definitely improved over time. Because there are so many resources and guides out there. That said, I don't think flat stats are as bad as they were back then. A couple good examples of this are specifically flat attack and flat HP rings, I believe. So if we look at I think I have some destruction pieces here, if I can ever find them. I definitely have some pieces of gear that I do use with flat main stats now. So this is 10 speed, not terrible. What else do we have? We have this one here, 34 crit damage on flat HP. I'm not using it right now, but it's still not terrible. We then have some better examples here. Wow, why is it so hard to find gear? There we go. Here's one, not exactly good. This wasn't the one I was looking for, but 12 speed, 500 flat attack. It's not terrible. And there is one more. There's one more, the one I wanted to show you. I can't, there we go, there it is. Okay, so there's this one here, 525 flat attack on the Glen, and amazing substats as well. So this is something that after they change flat stats is super viable now. And I think this is something people definitely screw up now. I think people kind of look over their flat stat gear and don't pay attention to it enough. And I think this is a really, really big problem. And I think people are really throwing out gear because of it. So for example here, let's take a look at Glenn and look at the attack this ring gives as opposed to an attack percent one. And Glenn isn't even the best for this. It's just how it works. So this is me using my Baikon's piece of gear here with attack percent level 88, 65%, and this brings me down to 33, 34. So I lose 84 attack, taking out my flat attack ring, and I lose crit rate as well. So as you can see here, the flat one is fantastic, and they definitely should not be looked over. Number 2, I talked about in this equipment section 4. This was broken sets, and I think this is something that people still mess up now as well, because so many people look at guides and they say, okay, so this guide tells me I need speed and immunity, or speed and immunity is a really bad example. I need speed and crit on my unit, so I need to put speed and crit on my unit. But what they don't realize is if they put speed and then 2 broken pieces that nobody else is using, that might end up being better than the speed and crit set, even with the crit set bonus. Definitely something people are not doing a lot, like not doing enough, not looking into their gear enough, and it's something I notice a lot. So if you're ever trying to build a unit and you just can't make that 4/2 set work together, try doing a 4/broken or a 2/2 broken. So like, for example, ML Ken is a really good unit that is often used in broken sets, and you could use them as crit immunity broken or broken immunity health. You know, like there's so many different ways you can build stuff like that, and it gives you a lot of elasticity on your gear. Number 3 is something I am guilty of now, so I think it is obviously really important still, and that is not doing PvP and not buying flags and stamina with your friendship points. So let's take a look at how many flags I have right now. I have 58 arena flags, and I hate PvP right now. I used to love PvP. Like, I didn't love RTA, but I used to really enjoy just autoing PvP, but now it's honestly god awful. I haven't even gone into here this week. I hate PvP right now. It's not fun. Everything is Rylot and Arbiter Vildred and Rowana and Ruel, and I'm sitting at 4K right now. I don't even attack anymore. I'll probably attack this week and try to climb a little higher just to get a little bit of extra rewards, but this is something people didn't do back then, and they still do not do right now, as you can see by my 58. So the reason why you should be doing this is obviously conquest points are insane. It's also really quick to do it. Again, being a hypocrite right now. But if you want, you can clear through all of these really easily, and you can even set up a team that clears these really, really fast. So for example, you can throw in Arbiter Vildred and SSB or something like that if you have them, or basically 2 cleavers that are faster than them, or 1 booster, 1 cleaver, and you can defeat these teams in 2 turns approximately. Another one, if you have no NPC challenges up and you don't want to bother with actually PvP, you can join the battle and leave right away, and you still get decent rewards. So definitely something you should be doing, because if you're not doing this, you're missing a couple things. You're missing the flags here. You need to be buying these every day. They really help out. I should buy this too. I'm over cap. Who cares? Don't judge me. You are missing the conquest points as well, which are all of these things, the entry tickets or the energy here, all of the things. You're missing so much. Just do it. Just do it. Number 4. This one I think is a miss now, because I think people do it because Mulagoras are so important. The number 4, wow, we're 10 minutes in and I'm only at 4. I'm going to start talking faster. Number 4 is not fully clearing the story. So back then, the story was massive in terms of where you got stuff. It still is, but I think at this point in the game, people just do it automatically now, especially since it's a lot easier to do than it was back then. So I think we definitely miss here. So if you're one of those people who does not have 3-star in every single location, you should probably do it. You get extra Mulagora, you get extra Skystones, you get all of the things. And in the later stages, it's not as important because the gear kind of sucks often. So It's something I don't think we should worry about as much now. Number 5, I titled BBK, Bloodblade Karin, and that's because so many people back then just built DPS. You know, I would log into an account to try to help them out, and they'd be sitting here at the table, and BBK would be there next to Sez, next to 2 other DPS, and they wouldn't have a healer on their entire account with gear. This is definitely something that's not as prevalent now, and because I think our healers are so good now and our units are so good that people are building everything now. So I think this is another miss where people only really built like 3 DPS and that was it. So definitely keep in mind, if you're struggling with Abyss, if you're struggling with anywhere PvE, you probably should just make your tanks, your supports, your healers a little bit better geared. Next up is the biggest miss of the video, and probably the reason why I'm even doing this now. Number 6 was Labyrinth and Scenario gear. So way back when, we had no gear at all, and we just couldn't do anything, right? And the biggest piece of gear, wow, I thought this was it. It is it, yeah! The most important piece of gear way back when, how do I still have this, was Ubrid's Amulet. This was a piece of gear every single person should have had max like a couple hours into their game. This was such an insane necklace and enabled so many things back then. But at this point in the game, it's basically useless. There's no reason to upgrade it. It's not worth the resources. It's just not worth it at all. So it's kind of funny seeing this going from the start of the show to being like vendor trash immediately. And the sad part is it's not even vendor trash. You could still use it and it's still not bad, but it's just the upgrade resources are too important to let you use gear. So that's kind of funny to look at now. Also with scenario gear, the only one that even maintains a little bit of usefulness now, and keep in mind I started a new account a week or 2 ago, probably 3 weeks ago now, so I know what I'm talking about. The only one you should upgrade is Pegasus boots. And the reason why Pegasus boots are upgradable is because 1, it's a crit set, so it helps you out, even though I use mine on my A Momo, and 2, they don't give you speed gear. They just don't do it. You get no speed resources early game. You get no support resources. Every single thing is like attack, crit damage, attack, 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 crit rate. So that's really important. So that is a huge miss, IMO, Labyrinth and Scenario gear. Number 7 is Wyvern and Hunts too early, and this one is debatable. So back then, whenever anybody asked what to do, the generic response was always get your Wyvern team going, and people would tell that to people that are like in stage 2, you know, like, so every single person was just panicking that they couldn't get their Wyvern team done because they couldn't do it. They were sitting at like rank 20 and it was just not a thing. So from somebody who just started a new account, this is absolutely not necessary now. You do not need to rush into hunts anymore. And I don't think you needed to back then either. So I think this was actually correctly said back then. It's debatable. It also depends a lot on your team. For example, my alt hasn't done anything past Wyvern 12 yet, and has not had any trouble with Abyss or any PvE or anything like that, just with the free gear they have given you, because the free gear they give you at the start is going to be miles ahead of pretty much everything else you get unless you are insanely lucky at the start. That said, if you do pick up people like Sigrid, which is really, really important for your selective summons, we'll talk about that in another video, and you have a tank that can survive Wyvern, then it might be worth getting it done early because you can push there quickly. But I can't do it yet because I don't have that tank, I don't have Sigrid, I don't have the ease to make my way into Wyvern 13. So definitely, if you're one of those people early game and you can't do 13 yet, just farm Catalyst, just get your 6 stars made. Make sure you're doing all of your other PvE, make sure you're doing Abyss. There's so many things you can do that you need to do. Even people like me who have been playing since day 1 still spend a ton of time in the side stories and the world area farming Catalyst instead of gear. 1, because it costs less stamina, and 2, because I like making 6 stars. So something to consider when you're going in there. Number 8 I talked about is aptly titled Waiting for Angelica. Back then, Angelica was the be-all end-all. Everybody recommended Angelica. She made the game a lot easier, but there were people who just didn't do anything. They were like, nah, I don't want to do Abyss, I don't have Angelica. So they would sit there and wait and not progress, not try Wyvern, not try anything because they didn't have Angelica back then. There were alternatives back then. They were much more difficult. I actually said Hazel was getting the spec change soon and she's gonna change things, so I was super wrong on that because Hazel sucks. Sorry, but she does. But I don't think this is a thing anymore because everything is so easy for the most part, right? You get such good gear at the start of the game, you don't need a healer. And if you do need a healer, you don't need a good healer. So that's kind of interesting to see what the levels of gear they give us at the start of the game have done to things. So really cool. And number 9 is following tier lists too closely and or following tier lists without understanding why. And this is a massive one in every gacha game ever, and it's frustrating to me because so many people live and die by random tier lists. And you could put up a random tier list day 1 for a game without even knowing the characters. You could find all the 5 stars and plop them on randomly and people would follow it like gospel. They wouldn't know why, they wouldn't know what credentials that person has, they wouldn't know anything. So this is a massive thing. I think a lot of people mess up and don't fully utilize their account because of it. Really good example for me, and I talked about this in my other video, was when I was picking Araminta in my selective summon, I was spammed in Twitch chat by the KR server because she was terrible and there was no reason to pick Araminta. Why would I pick Araminta when I could pick Sez? There's no reason. You suck. Sez is S rank and Araminta's B rank or C rank. Why would you do this? And obviously it didn't turn out the best because Araminta is not the best unit, but she's, I think, quite a bit ahead of Sez right now, and I think she has been ahead of Sez for the majority of the game outside of when Sez bombing was a thing. But what if I had got Sigrid? Imagine if I had got Sigrid back then instead of Sez. Sigrid is now S rank and Sez is basically right at the bottom. And if you take a look at tier lists back when games come out, I'm thinking about the last like 6 games I've played, and every tier list was completely, mostly wrong within the first like week or two. So keep that in mind when you're following guides and stuff like that. Genshin's another really good example of that right now. People are just living and dying by tier lists, even though it's completely different. And number 10 is Ancient Coins. So this is the biggest one that was wrong, but right at the same time on the video. And back then, in the olden days, while us old people, us boomers, were walking uphill in bare feet and stuff like that, we had to buy accessory chests. So back then, we literally bought level 22 to 60 accessory chests to try to get gear. It was horrible. So in the video, I actually said not to do this. So I was technically right for the video, but for the wrong reasons. But I think that's a really funny one to look at because of how much that's changed. Now you don't buy the malicious bug charm, you don't buy this. All you buy are these charms. That's all these Abyss things are for now. And you have so much of them now that I don't even know what to do with them all, which is why I should be switching everything to conquest points now. So yeah, those are the 10 things. I think we did okay. I think this was a really good way to look back at the start of Epic 7. And if you are somebody who wasn't there at the start, I really recommend watching that video and kind of looking back at this one too, because I think we've come a long way. And I think a lot of the ideas and thoughts behind how to play the game at the start have pulled through today. So let me know what you thought about this. Let me know if you think I should make another video like this, but specifically 10 new things or the current 10 top things, since right now we're just kind of reviewing the last one, and we'll see. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe as always, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everybody.